It seems like it's been a long time. I know our boss friends were off for quite a few times, quite a few days, I think 18 altogether. So welcome back, my boss friends. Welcome back to a new year to all of our other individuals that are in the room. We have Canfield, we have Summit, we have individuals from Trumbull County, we have Columbiana County. So it is so awesome to see everybody.
It always feels a little romper room like when you're like, and I see.
Don't.
Good morning, Jason. Good morning, Kelly. I see.
You can tell that some of us have been elementary teachers way too long. So.
Oh, there's a lot of truth to that, because I was just going through I was trying to look at all the participants and who had cameras on, who didn't, and that's exactly the feel that I had, so.
And it's just neat to see all the names and all of the places and all of the friends. So I know that we're in great company. Matthew is showing on the screen our sign-in sheet. We also put that already in the chat box, but we can drop that in there one more time. This is truly how we manage to keep track of our attendance. It helps us see if we're hitting and servicing our different counties. And it also helps us remember, because I don't know about you, sometimes I need little things to help me remember. And this is one of those things that helps me remember with what's going on. So Madeline, I'm glad you are back in that saddle again, but you are going to be writing high because I know the work that your team does. So that post-holiday fatigue is worth every minute of it.
Yeah, and that's even more so why we appreciate you all being here this morning, because we understand. And even when we were looking at that calendar, we're like, I don't know if this is a great date for this, but we're excited that you're willing to be here and continue moving that work forward with your teams.
And what a better way to start the new year, actually, because just as a little teaser, one of the poll questions might have something to do with how you reboot at PBIS in the new year, or how you hope to continue to reboot it, because we're really only in the first week of our new calendar year. But so thank you for taking the time to sign in. And also Jessica did put in earlier the participants.
Our note-taking page, and on the note-taking page, you'll find links to all of our resources, including the participant copy of our slideshow. So if you want to follow along, we did include that as well. But that note-taking page is a great way to kind of document your thoughts as we are working through the network today.
Okay.
Meredith, bless you. I think those were sneezes.
Thank you, Matthew, for being so observant.
I apologize.
We are your SST consultants as far as PBIS goes, and for anything else, if need be. Think of Jessica and Marla as if we were a boat or a ship. They are your engines and I'm more of the anchor, and you can take that in a lot of different directions.
I'm not sure how to take that one, Matthew.
Well, I meant that in a good way, and you guys are on fire this morning, so I hardly feel like I should step in and get in the way of this camaraderie that the two of you are sharing this morning.
I think our whole.
So I love it.
Great camaraderie.
But I'm Matthew. I was going to say across the table from me is Jessica, but you don't necessarily know that unless you're looking at the
screen.
Yeah, there's
the one shared screen.
really far away though over there.
Yeah.
Yes, I am Jessica Dedick.
And I'm Marla. And we're all here and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
In case you've forgotten, or in case you need reminded, to follow us on social media. We are active on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We post all of our recordings on YouTube. So when we share those out with you afterwards, those go to YouTube. They live on YouTube, as well as our TFI Tuesdays and our office hours. All of those recordings go to YouTube. Some of them are listed, some of them are unlisted. So I know Marla, when she sends out her letters, either pre or post meeting, she includes those links. That's going to be probably your best way to get them. The other place that you can find them is right on our website. If you go to the PBIS tab at the top of this page, and you go to PBS Media Resources.
Mhm.
I named it and I can't even remember what I named it. If you go to there, all of those, the TFI Tuesday recordings, there's all links to all of those things right there. Because the other thing that we continue to do is build our website to sort of be the best sort of resource for you possible. Because we know the easiest place to probably find that stuff is in one place. So we're trying to make that better as well. So if you're looking for any of those links or the playlists for PBIS or the office hours or whatever, you can find them on YouTube or on our website or in Marla's beautifully written
Are beautifully written.
emails.
That's true.
Because we actually do those together.
But Marla gets to send them out.
Next up is our expectations, because we certainly have some expectations for you, because what kind of a PBS team would we be without having our own matrix? So it's not changed. It's pretty much the same thing that you've seen in the past. We appreciate it when you have your cameras on, when you complete any pre-work that we ask you to prior to the meeting. We're always going to presume positive intent, ask for active participation, and sometimes we forget to take breaks. So if need be, please take care of your own personal needs and then return promptly when we do offer breaks, which I've said that twice now. So obviously that's a good reminder for us to make sure that we're taking breaks when we need to. Or even if we forget, you guys should just send us a reminder. Chat, hey, could we take a break now?
We would not be offended.
No, because sometimes it is like things start, happening and you lose track of time. And
Well, sometimes we're really excited about what we're discussing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and sometimes so are they, and it's hard
That's
to go,
true.
okay, let's just stop and take a break now. That would kill all the momentum. So but keeping those things in mind, the last thing on our matrix, there'll be a problem solver, right? Seek clarification, ask questions, because I can't stress enough, our office hours, these hours, these really are all about you. And I can't undersell that, because it's not just a bunch of, fluff that I'm trying to give to you. It's really, we want these to be about you and help you and your needs and your, with your team and in your school. So please ask questions. Always use positive statements and restatements. Again, that goes back to that we're going to presume positive intent, but it helps when we state things positively and such. So, and last but not least, have fun. It's first thing in the morning. It's January 5th. So many of us are just coming back from, maybe a couple weeks off for holiday breaks. So we need this to be fun for all of us. We get it. So
I don't know what you're trying to say.
with no further ado, let's have some fun. On our agenda this morning, we've got our welcome and introduction, some reflective questions, a video clip that we're all going to watch, some updates that we're going to share. We've restructured the time a little bit differently. We're going to jump right into the content this time and sort of end with some of the other follow-up things that we typically do at the beginning. We're going to end with this time, see how that goes. So keep that in mind. But we're going to offer you some strategies for de-escalating behaviors follow-up. And then last but not least, we're going to end with some feedback and survey. And throughout, we're going to, just like the last time, we have some poll questions that we're going to throw up. That's that sort of reflective questions that we're going to ask you. All those pertain to our last session. So just sort of as a little bit of a review, nothing hard, obviously, you're not getting graded. Your mom or dad or significant other isn't going to receive any sort of update on how you did today. So pretty low stakes. So keep that in mind, and we'll keep right on moving. Jessica, you want to share about the high five?
So we have introduced this high five this year as we are observing our participants that are meeting our expectations. We really do appreciate your active engagement. We really appreciate having your cameras on, because we love reading how you're reacting to what we have to offer. We appreciate when you're willing to share. We love when you're willing to ask questions, clarifying questions. I know the last several sessions, we've had some really great conversations based on your own questions that you've brought to the meeting. So we greatly appreciate that. So what the team does, but it's mostly Marla because we're all juggling different things, is we acknowledge those through private messages, and we'll send out this little virtual high five, and we actually have 2 different versions of it. So we want to show our appreciation as much as we can while continuing to get that meeting moving through. So you might notice in the chats, you might receive one of these high fives from one of us, just to show our appreciation for you meeting our expectations.
And I actually did send out a high five already, but this was not even about anything that was particularly happening right now. But we have a super person in our audience that actually gives us some great feedback every time she watches a TFI Tuesday. And even every time she watches some of our recordings. So I don't know if she realized that I sent her a high five yet, but I'm going to call her out. And I want to thank you, Leanne, because honestly, we read all of the feedback. The feedback helps us get better. The feedback helps us rethink things. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, we appreciate all of the feedback that you offer yeah, on our TFI Tuesdays, and even what everyone is able to give us even in our evaluations at the end of our sessions. It really helps drive what we plan in the future. So we always appreciate feedback, and any positive or negative. That's the only way we continue to grow.
All right, intention setting. So we started doing this about a year ago, I think it was, for each of our sessions, because we know that you play a much higher role in the outcomes of each of these sessions than we previously probably sort of gave you credit for. And I've shared this story, but like I remember taking graduate classes and they were always in the evening. And I always had I had about an hour drive there and an hour drive home. So a class that's a couple hours, I'm getting home at 10 o'clock at night. So I pretty much hated the classes. Yeah, no lie. But I would go into them with this sort of like, woe is me, I hate this time, it's going to stink. What am I going to get from it? Probably nothing. And I really
probably thinking of everything else you could be doing instead of doing that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, because let's face it, not every night was snowy and rainy or whatever else. There was lots of evenings where it was like, are you kidding me? The sun is out. I could be anything, honestly. I could be doing anything and enjoy it more than what I'm going to have to endure at night. But my point though is that
Us all want to go back to school now.
no, at some point I made the switch of going, you know what, tonight I'm going to engage. Tonight I'm going to, when it's time to share out or talk, I'm going to do those things. And that wasn't, the professor, they're not the ones that told me to do that. It was me that finally one day said, you know what, tonight I'm going to be involved more. I'm going to talk more. I'm going to, whatever, I'm just going to engage more. And that night was one of the best nights, the best classes I had. And it didn't occur to me until afterwards that the difference was me. The difference wasn't the class. The difference wasn't the professor. It wasn't even the content. It was me. It was my choice to engage in it and how I was going to engage in it. So I think of that a lot like this intention setting. What do you hope to get from this? Because it's what you intend to get that determines if you get it or not. So at the end of this session, what do you want to know or learn more about? And then what are you going to do to achieve that? Those are just two simple questions. Just take 30 seconds. It doesn't take much. Could be just words written on a paper, on a notepad or your paper, even a phrase, whatever it is, but 30 seconds. Sorry. All right, welcome back. Hopefully we have some time at the end to visit those intentions and you get to kind of reflect on whether you met those or not and what your next steps will be.
And Matthew, let me just interrupt real fast. There's a couple people that just joined us or rejoined us. So I did put the note page back into the
Perfect.
chat. And I'm also going to add in the sign-in sheet as well.
Thank you. So we do want to check in with all of you before we get rolling too much into this meeting. But with the winter theme here, which snowman do you identify the most with? And this might be just overall personality, or this could be where you are mentally today. So maybe, you know, on a regular day, you might be a different snowman, but maybe this morning, as you're struggling to get back into the swing of things, you might be a slightly different one.
Or maybe a snowman you want to be. But
Ah, yeah, we have so many choices.
Susan, I can see you as a 1. Tiffany at 3. Oh.
Oh, man, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, Michelle. Yes. From what yes.
See, I'm torn because I also feel 2. I love 2 and I feel like I embody 2, but I also have the other side of me that's a 5.
Mhm.
I am holding that checklist, ready to get some tasks written down and never accomplished.
That's not
I'm
true.
writing lists of tasks that need to be done. But then I turn into 8 and I don't get them done.
Well, we've got people going to Florida. Let's see, is there anybody else that's
Oh.
joining you in the land of?
I'm sorry to hear that you're having a tough week. Oh, man. Yeah, Struthers is also melting over there. I'm so sorry.
It's Thursday, so.
It is
I mean,
Thursday.
And you know what? The toughest part of your week is done already.
Ducking locals all over. I get it. But that makes a well-balanced team. That's great.
We need to have that balance.
Yes.
Because, you know, it helps ground us. If we were all a 3 or all an 8.
Oh, yeah.
Some Floridians scare me, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. I can see that. Thank you for taking one for the team, Meredith. And Christina, oh yeah, you're definitely a 1. See, I see 1 as being fun.
Oh, yeah. See, I see Matt as a 7. Matt, you didn't say, which one are you?
Yeah, right now, probably a 1, even though I probably most closely relate to 7, most of the time, but I'm also that 5 too. Cause like I live and die by the checklist or by my to-do list. And it's sad because I get so attached to them that like, then it's hard to move away from that. But right now it's a 1 because my caffeine is kicking. And like, and I'm lucky, I'm fortunate that every morning, I don't have like, I've not built up a tolerance to caffeine. I don't know how, because I definitely, use enough of it, but every morning it's the same, you know, great feeling. And I want to bounce off the walls. So I really do feel like that. And 1 definitely embodies that. Like I know it's supposed to probably be silly, but right now for me, I could do that right now.
Yeah.
Hey, actually, that's sort of interesting. Maybe we should send this out and have people say which snowman they think we actually are.
Oh,
Oh, that's a little scary. That's a scary thought. But that's okay.
okay. Moving on.
Moving on. And you know, check-ins are really important, Jessica. Why do you think check-ins are important?
I think it's a great way to just see where people are and for your own self-reflection. Where am I right now? Before, you know, especially after that intention setting, where am I to even start to help drive me forward? How about you, Marla?
Well, thanks for asking the question, even though I wasn't expecting it to be tossed back. No, I really think the same thing because it helps me actually then frame the way I present things. And it helps me at least see what my participants, what my students, what my scholars are thinking about at that particular time, but it also helps me prepare me.
So this is kind of the point on the map that says you are here. We are at the 3rd of our 4 coaches network dates. We do still have one final one in March where we'll hopefully have a lot more information about the recognition application for those of you that are interested in that. But we also have a lot of other contents that we still have left to share. Remember, our network meetings occur, they're always on a Thursday and they're from 8:30 to 10:30. And we try our very best to keep to that exact time. So we hope you'll be able to join us again in March and bring even more friends, because we see more and more of you are able to start bringing additional teammates, which we absolutely appreciate, because just spreading that message out even further.
Just that when you join us as a team, make sure everybody does do the sign-in sheet.
That's a great point.
Mhm.
Thank you. And then we also have our flipped office hours. So we're trying really hard to make this clear that this is a non-traditional form of office hours in the way that we provide content in advance of the meeting. And then we spend the meeting truly digging deeper into that content. But it is an office hour. So as we are digging into that content, if there is a specific concern or problem or application request that you have, as it is to applying the content that we're discussing, we're open to having in-depth conversations about how to apply the information to your team, to your school. So it is a different format than traditional office hours where we just kind of sit around and wait for people to come. This is an active experience where, again, we have content that we give you beforehand. It's not a lot of content, but it's something that then we can really get into deep conversations about moving our teams forward, moving our systems forward. So our next one will be on Groundhog's Day, and we hope it won't just be the same thing over and over again. We do have new content for that flipped office hours, but we hope you'll be able to join us on that February 2nd meeting. We do record them as well as Matthew mentioned earlier. So that will be available if you're unable to attend, but we really hope that you'll be able to join us for that, because we have some really great conversations about how to actually use the information. So we hope to see you there. I'm not gonna lie, we don't have this poll actually as a poll in Zoom because we were fighting with Zoom and whose account is which and what. So we're just gonna ask you to do this one in the chat. I'm so sorry.
No, this was the good ones we were talking about earlier. We were trying to get those into Zoom.
But as you know, there are 4 core tier 1 practices, and those include requesting assistance, correcting errors, teaching expectations, and which is the 4th core practice in tier 1. So you can throw it in the chat. Do we want to do like a?
Let's do a waterfall.
Oh, okay. So hold on. If you haven't responded yet, have they responded yet? I don't have the chat open right now. I'm sorry. We'll wait. So type in your answer, but don't hit enter yet. So number 1 would be writing office referrals. Number 2 would be documenting infractions. Number 3 is acknowledging the behaviors you want to see. And number 4 is doing the TFI. So go ahead and write in your number, but don't hit enter. Oh, I gotta open up the chat because I love to watch this part.
This is one of my favorite parts too.
And we're gonna hit enter in 3, 2, 1, hit enter.
I really wanted to have
That's so much fun.
PLCs, don't go chasing waterfalls
I'm
queued up
sorry.
right when everyone did, I could hit play, but I didn't, so I failed.
Thank you, those of you who responded, because I know how awful it is to be afraid to give the wrong answer. And I greatly appreciate the number of you that were willing to respond to that. So Marla, do you want to reveal the answer?
Well, first I have to say, my chat is still up on like, I had to scroll down. So the first thing I see is like 8s.
Oh, snowman
Yeah,
numbers.
no. It's like, well, they're way off.
But yes, actually, I don't have to even reveal the answer because the answer has been revealed in the chat. It is true. Those 4 core tier 1 practices. Now, remember, there is other practices that we need to have in place, but there are 4 core. Requesting assistance, correcting errors, teaching expectations, but acknowledging the behaviors that you want to see. Those are those 4 critical features of PBIS framework. So thank you for those of you that joined our poll. So now what are we off to?
So this comes from the PBIS student panel from the PBIS showcase. This is kind of a teaser or a little bit of a spoiler, but this is a quote from the student panel from a student that just really resonated with us. So we wanted to share it just to get, again, your mindsets kind of focused on where we're heading. So the quote says, "Students come first. How are we supporting our students? What are we doing as a human being to help other human beings be successful?" And I thought this was absolutely amazing to hear a student say this, because this is absolutely something any one of us in the room would say. But hearing it from a child that they are this aware really resonates with how important this work is, how important the progress is, and really why we're here right now.
And I think Lexi's comment embodies what I've always thought the PBIS framework was about. It's creating the environment of success, not just for our scholars, but for our teachers, for our staff members. How are we setting up our environment so everyone can be successful? And it even backups all the way to what Matthew said earlier about us being able to control only one person. And that's ourselves. And PBIS is about the adults in the room. So.
And as another teaser, because another student in the same panel also said, what are we doing to take care of the teachers? Because
Yes.
teacher burnout is a real thing. And if we're not taking care of the teachers, they can't take care of us. So what are we doing to help the staff? And again, these are students that are having this leadership conversation, because I think it was a leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the name exactly, but
We'll tell you whenever
Yes.
we get to the section of our slide.
that's enough of a teaser. But I mean, it was such a great conversation that was taking place that when we sat down to try to think about what we could take from it and use and what quotes, it was terribly difficult to go, okay, well, let's use that, or let's use that, because they all had something so significant to say that it was hard to pick and choose.
Yeah, and that's why I do love that, students come first, and that's something that we all can agree on. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings, all of our staff, all of our students, all of our families. And what are we doing to help other human beings? And that includes those teachers, that includes our families, that includes everyone. And it really gets to the core of the why. So with that, we have a couple of questions that we want you to consider. We're going to give you a couple of minutes to kind of think on your own. If you want to jot down some notes, there is some space on your note-taking page, but we are going to put you into a breakout room for this. For this to kind of have a discussion around these two questions. So the first question, we know that the TFI 1.6 refers to school policies and procedures. It's probably my least favorite part of the TFI.
I think that's everybody's least.
Because
favorite
it's so, I don't know, ambiguous. I don't love it, but I do love the fact that it's emphasizing proactive, instructive, and/or restorative approaches to student behavior. So what we want you to consider is how, what, and why does your school challenge the historically punitive practices for addressing unwanted behaviors? Because that's a very critical work that's being done across the region. And we want you to kind of think through, what are you currently doing? What is your school, your team, your system doing to address that? So that's one thing we want you to think about. The second one, the TFI 1.9 shares with us the importance of reinforcing students for meeting expected behaviors with a minimum of 50% of students receiving the acknowledgements and a minimum of 90% of staff members utilizing the system. And we have a lot of thoughts and curiosity around those numbers, about having half of your students receiving those acknowledgements. but having 90% of your staff using that system. So what we want you to think about is, what do you believe are, just for example, 2 outcomes from these requirements as it correlates to the students and the staff? So when we think about our acknowledgement system, what are the actual outcomes of using that acknowledgement system and considering both the student outcome and the staff outcome? Sorry about that. So we wanted to give you a few minutes to kind of jot down your thoughts on that. But we were also trying to prepare our breakout rooms so that they're the best for who we have in the room. We did choose to kind of isolate. I know we have Southern Local, we have you as a team, so we kind of isolated you into your own room so you guys can have a discussion. If you want to join an additional room, we will absolutely toss you into one. And then we did the same for, I believe, Struthers. We kept you guys in your own little room just to so you can have a discussion in the actual room you're in right now. But again, if you want to hear from other people, we can absolutely toss you into another room. We just want to make sure that you guys have some meaningful discussions around these 2 questions. I am going to actually toss these questions into the chat so that you can have those while you're having this discussion in your breakout room. Except I clicked the wrong button.
Jessica might toss you into the room. I'll gently place you in.
That's true. I do.
Our word choices.
Sorry. Oh, these questions are also in your note-taking document.
Yes, they
I
are.
forgot.
Mhm. And I do apologize. My chat box is not responding to me at all. So if I have quite.
If you feel like you earned a high five and haven't received it yet, we're trying our best.
They're trying to get there.
So we're going to give you 8 minutes in this breakout discussion. So kind of pace yourselves between those 2 questions and prioritize it based on what the discussion is more meaningful. So it's okay to start with number 2 if you are really passionate about that discussion first. But we appreciate your participation in this discussion. So we'll have 8 minutes on the clock here. And Matthew, are you prepared to send them out?
Yes.
Okay, and let us know if you need anything while you're in that discussion.
All right. Have fun.
Timer is set. Welcome back, everybody. I see there are a few people that are still in their rooms having a deep conversation, but they should be coming back shortly. But hopefully these 2 questions will help you as we continue to move forward with the next section of our presentation, which is actually the panel discussion. When our team actually had the honor of watching this panel discussion, we were just truly amazed at the comments, the knowledge, the honesty that these young people shared through this setting, we thought it was so much more powerful than what we could possibly say. So I know that Matthew's in the process of working through his Zoom demons. But as he advances, we are going to share this short video, and it is about a little under 20 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah.
What we want you to do, just as we sort of found a quote that resonated with us, think about and listen to the different things that you are hearing from these young people and see how, as you think through, they tell us a lot about some promising practices. Think about what's happening in your building, in your school district that aligns with the promising practices that they suggest to us. So without further ado.
So this is the student panel discussion from the PBIS showcase that we've mentioned earlier, and we'll talk more about during our updates at the end. But this is student representatives from Ohio's Whole Child Advisory Group. So these are all students from different schools that function on an advisory group that were asked to speak to PBIS. So these are not necessarily student representatives on PBIS teams or anything like that. These are just student leaders across the state that were invited to this panel for a discussion. So you'll recognize that the two questions that they are asked, because again, we just took a little clip. The whole presentation is phenomenal, but we had to really just isolate something for our discussion. So we chose this, and the two questions that you were just discussing in your breakout rooms are the two questions that they will be posed as well. So we wanted you to kind of think through your own responses and reactions to those questions prior to watching the student's perspective of it. And Marla already beautifully explained kind of what we want you to think and consider as you are watching this. We also encourage you to jot anything down into that note-taking documents that resonates with you as you're listening to what the students have to say. And again, just reflect on your current practices and start to ask yourself just questions around what they have to say. And we urge you to document those questions, document the questions so that you can explore them in the future.
And then as always, thinking about what can you do with this information? How can you take it even further? And as Jessica mentioned, if you want to watch the whole thing, which is about an hour long, it is available still until January 16th.
And we'll share that information later in this meeting. Without further ado.
Yeah, without further ado.
Our next question is, what suggestions do you have for staff to transform student discipline practices rather than like something more punitive when a student experiences a setback?
I think finding the root of the problem is really necessary. I feel like principals or sometimes people in administration look at students very subjectively, and it's like it's this incident and this is through punishment for doing such. But a lot of the time there is background, there's more going on or more lying underneath the surface, and getting the student that help that they need, whether so this doesn't happen again, or if there really is something deeper going on, making sure that they're supported and they're not just punished, because a lot of that time is going to reoccur, and being able to come to the root of the cause will benefit the student and benefit the school because it won't happen again and things like that.
I agree. I feel like there's usually more going on when a student gets into a situation where disciplinary action is taken. And I feel like when that happens, and then the first action that a school takes is detention or suspension, a lot of those times students feel like they're not being worked with, they're being worked against. They feel like to solve the issues that's going on, because there's something deeper usually. They're not being supported, they're just being like thrown in a corner to just serve their time out and serve whatever time they need for their punishment, and then they're just kind of like put back into school without like really addressing what's going on. So I feel like opening doors and making those connections for students is just so important when those things are happening. So maybe they need an outlet at school. Maybe they don't have anyone to talk to about what's going on, but giving them those connections at schools and finding someone for them to build those personable connections with can really open doors for them emotionally. And then I'm kind of going off of what Landon and Lexi were saying is we start these habits young, and when kids feel like they're making mistakes and just straight off punishing them isn't necessarily the best thing that's happening, but building those connections and telling kids it's okay to make mistakes. Obviously, we don't want you to do this again, so maybe if you feel like what's going on at school isn't working for you, let's find something else. So maybe doing, instead of detentions, doing volunteer work, maybe having them help in with the office, or just doing more positive things to correct behavior or grades, just making them feel like they are a part of the school. So when they are struggling, they can turn to administrators, they can turn to their teachers, and just making them feel like they are a positive part of the school and like they aren't a problem.
Thank you, Abby. And I think I waited to ask this question because I think, talking about how do we transform student discipline, let's go back. So then how does your school celebrate big and small wins for all students?
My school does a program where we do like this point system, which is called PBIS, which is basically your students will give you points your teachers will give you points if they feel like you're doing well in class, or you're just being a good person. They'll give you a couple points, and you have like, each teacher has their own store, which you can get rewards from. You can get treats. If you're hungry, you can get some food using those points. And I think PBIS I've seen work for a lot of people. Personally, me, I'm always hungry, so I'm always glad to get those points, able to buy some food off my teacher's store. So I really do like PBIS, and I think it's a good motivator and like a small little treat for students to, treat themselves.
I know at our school we have E plus R equal O slips that teachers give out whenever they see a student, not necessarily having to be the top of their class or anything, but when they do something, they do write a little slip, and that kind of gets into like a raffle. And during our nest period, which is a period during the day where we just kind of chillax for like 15 minutes, students are announced over the announcements, and they receive like a little reward. So I think it does benefit it a lot because it does take away from it being academically focused and just looking at the individual themselves and the good deeds that they're doing throughout the school and how they're improving on themselves and really reaching their full potential.
At my school, we do Pioneer Bar Awards. I think it's just like a Hershey bar wrapped in like orange and blue wrapping, and they give that to a couple students every month. It's nothing big, and I haven't received one personally. Maybe I'm doing something wrong though. But I think that's just like a small incentive. I don't think it has really had a huge impact at our school though, because I don't feel like kids are actively working towards it. But I think to reach all students, we do the news every morning during our second period, and clubs and organizations, sport teams can submit kind of what's going on, and then they can be shown on the news and kind of be highlighted for what they're doing well and what they've accomplished. So that's really cool because I know more about what's going on, at least when I see the accomplishments being highlighted on the news, and just knowing that the people are doing well. Like I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't said. I feel like there's a lot of support and rewards given within sports and organizations at our school and within different maybe theater departments and stuff. So I don't get to see a whole lot of what's going on with the other sports and how well they're doing. But when I see them on the news, it's like a little snippet of just seeing all the cool things that they've done and accomplished.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so I'm going to close it out with this last question. And so I would like everybody to kind of go down the line and answer it. So to close out and improve upon your school's environment and norms and our school climate and culture through PBIS and districts across Ohio, what is one thing you want those in attendance in today's event to take back to their schools and their communities? So what is one thing that you want the people that are listening to you today to bring back to their schools and their communities? So whoever wants to go first.
I'll begin.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. So I guess the one thing that we've all mentioned is that students come first. The well-being, everything, the school should not be about who gets the best grades, who is the best academic-wise, but it's how are we supporting our students? How are we building a school that is fitting their needs and meeting them where they're at? And putting in the support, putting the effort to make sure that the whole child academically, wellness-wise, even everything outside of school, what can you do as a school, as a teacher, as a human being to make sure that other human beings are being successful and having the ability to be successful?
I would like to say look out for your teachers and your faculty, your like staff, because the foundation really is the teachers. Teachers also have emotions. I feel like we forget our teachers also go through things. Teacher burnout is a real thing. I speak to my teachers all the time and I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Because if my teachers aren't okay and they aren't okay enough to teach me, I'm not going to get anywhere as a student. There's going to be no student success. So I think teachers need that support as well, just as much as students do. Teachers need that support. So just look out for your staff and those teachers.
Yeah, I agree. To build off on that, just listen to everyone in the school district. Like that includes the students, the teachers, the faculty members. I think given the opportunity, everybody has something to say. Everybody has something that could be impactful. So, and just to remember to remind students that they aren't just academics, and that they are more than that. That's a good thing. I know for me, like that's helped me a lot. So I know every student would be impacted if they were reminded of that a little while.
I think something really important to take away when you're talking to students is to realize that you're going to get out from these students as much as you put into them. So really making the time to, like we've said throughout this, is just like build connections and make students feel included, and especially with like administrators, making the time to be with students, because administrators aren't necessarily with students in a class every single day, but making the time to build connections with them and put in the energy maybe for spirit weeks and just really highlight the accomplishments going on at the school and making programs and supporting the programs at the school that are going to benefit a student. However much effort and energy you're putting in, more than just kind of, I feel like sending out, we have a lot of Google, Google Sheets sent out just where we fill out questionnaires, but rather than that, coming in and asking us directly and putting in that physical work, you're going to get so much out when you make connections with the students. So really just you get out what you put in.
I think that the biggest takeaway that I could think of is, as a teacher, your work is the students. And sometimes you're going to have problems in your work. If every day, and I see this every single day, if you have a student who's disruptive in class, if you're a teacher in that scenario and that student, and instead of, matching them or calling them out in front of the entire class or trying to punish them in some way, have a 5-minute conversation with them right when they walk in the door. I've seen it happen every single day. It helps that student see the teacher as more of a person and less as a figure that just gives them work. And I think that means that helps a student be more engaged and be more focused. And also, as teachers, building a personal relationship with a student and having a personal relationship with a student has a huge impact on that student's life. And it might not be, the students that you like the most. It might not be your favorite students that need you the most. If you have a student who doesn't have a responsible adult in your life, as a teacher, as an administrator, as faculty, you can be that person. And that impact, just a small thing like saying hi or giving a student a piece of candy, that won't see that impact, but it has the potential to be huge. Thanks.
And to like build off of everyone, again, seeing the student as a whole. And another huge factor in all of this is being a good listener on both ends. And so having the ability to not only listen to the students, but the teachers really helps build that foundation and the connection. And again, we're looking for an environment where inclusivity is highlighted. So being a good listener takes a huge role in that, again, in both ends, and seeing the child as a whole and not just the sum of its parts. So.
Wow. That's a great way to end that. Thank you. I just want to thank all the students that are bringing their voices to us today. We know this is the end of the semester. They're all probably studying for their midterms and they have a lot going on. But I can tell you this, students, that truly cares about you and appreciates hearing the voices. You're speaking for students across the entire state. So thank you. And we believe in you and your successes. Members of the audience, we encourage you to continue finding ways for students to be part of the conversation. Students' voice is essential to meeting the needs of all learners to our schools. Again, a lot of these students all these students have participated in the Ohio Association of Student Leaders in our programming. We would love to get your schools involved, so please feel free to reach out to me or visit our website, oasl-oh.org. Thank you again so much. I hope you have a great rest of your semester, and then I'll turn it back over to Deborah.
I'll try not to play.
Okay, so we hope you found that to be a beneficial clip. We have watched it several times and we were still having a discussion the whole time about just the powerful statements and just the thoughts that they have. These are not, I keep expecting them to be reading from a script or reading, like Matthew was even saying, that they just sound almost coached because they sound like adults. They sound like any of your teammates that have been doing this work. But like I said, these are not students on a specific like PBIS panel. As you heard the one student mention PBIS as, well, we have this program, I think it's called PBIS. So these are not trained students specific to the work that we're doing, but they are so aware of the work. They're so aware of the urgency of this. And again, not just for the students, but also for all of the humans involved here. So that was a lot to digest. We hope you were able to take away some meaningful questions for yourself or just things to consider, things moving forward. So some questions we have for you to kind of jot down is, were any of your responses to the prompts we gave you right before the video, were any of those responses confirmed? Did you hear things that you're like, amen, that's absolutely what we were just discussing. These students are on the same page as us. Was there anything in that you reconsidered, not even necessarily about your discussion, maybe just in general that you hadn't thought about before? And what can you take away from the student panel video clip? What were some meaningful gems that you're going to move forward with, even if it's just confirming the work that you're doing? So we encourage you to kind of jot those down in your note-taking page. We are going to put you back into those original breakout rooms to kind of just talk through what you just saw, to talk through some of those questions and any of your thoughts about that student panel clip that we just shared with you.
And it really is always about what will our next steps be?
What can we do?
What can we do as adults to make our environment the environment that these scholars want and need to be successful. So Matthew, let us know when you are ready to hit that magical button.
And we will give you 8 more minutes. We do apologize for giving you a little bit longer time, but the room I hopped into was having a good discussion and I felt really bad ripping them out of it. But we are going to give you 8 more minutes to have that discussion. And then we do promise you will get a break after that. So if you do need to use the restroom before that, we totally understand. But we will take a little pause and break after this short breakout room of 8 minutes.
Welcome back, everybody. I have to actually take my ears out because I'm hearing myself twice. But I want to thank you for the room that I was in, had such fabulous conversation. Jessica was in a room and I was hearing their conversation. I just hope, and I think I speak from all of us, I should say, we just hope that that clip actually helped you either ground yourself in this work even stronger, because it really is great work. It isn't something that you have to do. It's just something that you want to do, and that's something that you need to do. And we just, before we send you off to your break, as we promised you, we wanted to ask whether or not if there was anybody that wanted to share anything out from their group, just really quick, about something that resonated with them, or something even, remember, we keep asking you the same question. What will you do with this information? Information is only powerful if you take it to the next level. So feel free to unmute. We love when you unmute, share out, or if you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and put that in the chat box as well. Something that resonated with you.
Well, I'm going to jump in there. I'm Doug from Struthers, and one of the things that we were discussing was we need to do a better job of making connections with kids and having staff see kids for who they are and where they come from. And we also discussed about, when we came back from the COVID situation, we didn't take enough time to listen to kids and their thoughts and what they had been through. We were so worried about jumping right into different things, trying to get them done and in order and in place, that we didn't take the time to listen to the kids, or some of our staff for that matter either. Sometimes, a lot of our staff, obviously they have lives outside of school. So we need to meet their needs as well. Mutual respect, trying to build on that, students and staff, I think is something that we need to do a better job of. And I think that could go for everybody.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, everybody from Struthers. Truly, I was in that room and it was a profound conversation, but you echoed beautifully what Landon shared. I thought Landon was truly, he was profound. He shared, and we put in the chat a strategy called the 2x10 relationship building strategy that you can actually use as part of your tier 2 supports or even your universal supports, because as we shared earlier on in our year, because of what has happened to us, that a lot of the strategies that we used in tier 2 are actually becoming strategies that we need to use for all of our students. So I thank you for your vulnerability. I thank you for your willingness to share, and for unmuting, Doug. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to share anything that was profound, resonated?
Yeah. I saw Southern Local also shared the need for parental support. We feel we are lacking in this area. And that's one of the topics we kind of started to address at the beginning of this year, is that parental involvement and engagement, and how do we reach out to families to make them more a part of this, to include them in this, but also that would promote more support from their end as well. So you're not alone.
But yeah, we have to think about how do we help them and invite them to come along with us, because that's what it is about. It's about coming with us. We don't want to do something to you. We want you to come with us. Right. Before we send you off to the break, we just want to give that last shout out to make sure that we aren't missing anybody that wanted to share something. But don't forget, this is a networking. This is our time to share with each other the good things that we're doing, even sometimes the things that we're having a hard time with, so that way we can problem solve together. Because the most important thing that we always have to remember is PBIS is a problem solving framework. It's not something that has all the answers, but it tells us that there is a way to find the answers when we come together and we problem solve. So if there's no other comments out there, how about if we take a few minutes, and this is where we're asking you to really step away from your computer, do that 30-30-30 or the 20-20-20, depending on what you subscribe to. Step away from that computer, decompress for a second, move. And we will see you back in how much?
10 minutes. Well, yeah.
Okay,
We'll go 10:01 is when we'll resume here.
perfect.
Well, welcome back. If you have joined us again, go ahead and turn your cameras on if you can. I lost all of my people.
I think we have to remove the spotlight.
Yeah, oh, maybe that's why I lost my other participants that I couldn't see. So thank you so much for coming back. As we kind of wrap up, we do still have a lot of great content to cover. But Marla and I were even talking during that little break about the fact that we are a problem-solving organization here between PBIS and just this network in general. So we were discussing something that was brought up actually in one of the groups, but also just in general. When considering student voice, obviously we don't all have these student panels that can bring to light some of their thoughts and ideas. I heard in some of the discussions that I was able to hop into, some creative ways that you do engage your students in a way that you get their voice. I know that for specifically some of our youngest students, something like a Google Form survey is not going to be ideal for getting their voice. So I was curious in this group that we do still have here, what are some ways that you do collect student voice? What are some ways that you find out what your students are interested in or what's meaningful to them, what they value in relationship to your system that maybe isn't just a Google Form survey? What are other ways that you achieve obtaining student voice? We would love to hear any creative ideas, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with your youngest students. If you just have other ideas of what we could consider to do that.
Every Friday, we have a PBIS ambassador meeting. So that's our students, and they're able to discuss anything with us. And we also receive some information from them through those ambassador meetings.
Thank you, Jason. That's a great way of having just even a small group of students that might be a little more comfortable having that conversation. That's a great idea.
And from families, we do have, we call it breakfast buddies, and we get food and coffee and drinks and have parents come in and then have them share ideas with us as well.
I was wondering, Jason, if whether or not you have anything that you have that written up somehow that maybe you would even share with us, so that way we can actually share out with our network. You know, sometimes when we hear things, it doesn't strike that nerve right away, but then we come back and we say, I know Jason said something, but I don't remember what it was. If you have anything that you can share with us that we could help jog people's memories, that would be awesome.
Okay, yeah, I'll look for any of the old flyers that we have.
Oh, thanks.
That would be perfect.
Or maybe it's only me that needs their memory jogged. I'm not sure, but I was hoping I wasn't.
No, we love throwing all those resources on the Padlet. So if you do all of a sudden think of something, you know where you can hop back to.
If you don't have anything at this moment to share, but think about it as you go forward. And then always remember to come back and share your toys. Because that's again, the only way that we get stronger is because we are learning from each other and sharing with each other. So as
Share
promised.
something, Marla. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry,
please,
Marla.
go ahead.
I'll share something. At the beginning of the year, I share out, it's called Google Jamboard, and it's kind of like Post-it notes, but it's all interactive. So you just share out the Jamboard, and students can post little Post-it notes or shapes or text box. So I usually leave that up to them, whatever tool they want to use with the Jamboard. And we take a class period and we do, it's 2 truths and a lie. So they're to tell 2 truths and a lie, and we have to try to figure out which one is which ones are the 2 truths and which ones are the lie. So it kind of gives us an idea of a couple things about them, and also their sense of humor too, because it's funny to see like what they come up with. So I'll do that at the beginning of the year, just to learn about the students, and then they get to learn about their classmates too.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I know you have to use something like Jamboard because you guys are all virtual, right?
Right.
So just making sure everybody else here realizes that. So that's absolutely a platform that schools that utilize Google could use something like that. Or even you could go as bare bones for the schools that meet in person. You could just use old-fashioned Post-it notes for something like that too. So I love that you brought that up, that, yeah, sometimes we think that it has, getting student voice has to be this giant document, but really it could be thoughts on a Post-it note that they're able to share.
It's just something silly that we do that they enjoy.
No, I appreciate you sharing that.
It's not silly at all. It's just a great idea.
And we've done it as a staff as well, so it can't be that silly.
If anybody else teaches social studies here, I'm sure you guys have probably tried this a time or two, but have you ever created like your own classroom constitution where you talk about like rights and privileges of people in your community, like what you expect inside of your classroom? But when you give them, the students, the tools to kind of write their own constitution about what they would like to be prioritized in there for how they treat one another and what the teacher brings to the dynamic, what they bring each day, they feel that it's much more reflective of what they're looking to see when they come into your environment each and every day. So that's gone well for me in the past, but if anybody hasn't tried it, it doesn't necessarily have to be called a constitution. Sometimes I've called it a social contract with like enlightenment ideas, but different strokes, different folks, whatever works for you people.
I love that.
Meredith, as you were talking, I used to call mine a social contract. So it was so funny that you put that in there just about as I was thinking about it at the same time.
Can I read mine? Is that one of my new skills?
Meredith, there is no end to your skills, just no end.
Yes, 2023 is going up for me. This is wonderful.
I put you and Stacy together as like the dynamic duo, and then you throw in Marie. We got the whole package. That's the trifecta.
Yeah.
I know Madeline's not here at the moment, so I can't, if I threw in the 4th, I don't know how I would say that, so. Anybody else, if you have ideas, you can always drop them in the chat. You can always let us know in our feedback forms. And just even talking about that feedback form real quick, that's really where we get our content. That's where we get our ideas, the ideas that you share with us. We try to find different ways of addressing them, trying in different ways. That's why we went down the route of the panel, because out of the mouths of babes, we can learn so much.
In a previous professional development series that we had at the state support team, we actually had a whole student part to it. So we had 2 separate two separate sections where one was adults, where we worked with adults, and the other was we worked with students. And I don't think anyone's on here this morning, or any districts that participated in that are on here this morning. But my point is, or what my point's going to be is, when we asked the students, when we truly gave them a voice and gave them a way to talk about some of these things, the stuff that came out, honestly, most of the adults weren't ready for, because the students were way more ready to move than what the adults were ready to move, what the adults were willing to do. And I mean that in the best sort of sense. Like the things that they said, the things that they witnessed, the things that they wanted to do far exceeded what the adults were comfortable doing. Not what the adults needed to do, but what they were comfortable doing at that time. Meaning a lot of this stuff, and I would even apply it to PBIS and behaviors and everything else. I think if you get students involved, what you're going to hear is going to be similar things to what you want to hear, but you're going to be faced with adults not being ready to move there.
Yeah.
You're right.
Not saying, not all adults, but I do know that I think there was some breakout rooms that were having some of that discussion with, with having some resistance from other adults. And I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers that you're going to find is, in getting students involved, is that they're going to be ready to do these things and see some of these practices reflected in their classrooms, in their school. But before you can do that, I think you're going to be met with resistance from adults, which is sad. Because they're ready for progress and we have some adults that aren't. And I hate putting it that way, but that was honestly, that was where we had the hardest part of that series was kids were like, let's go do this. And then it was like, okay, let's slow down, because now we got to work with the adults to get them there. And then when the adults would go back to try to do some of the work, that was where some of the, dissonance and discomfort came from was an adult. So keep in mind, when you ask them, be prepared.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll find that their ideals are going to be a lot more aligned with yours than maybe what you would have thought.
But I also know that a lot of you are working to, I hate to say encourage staff buy-in because
That sounds like
there's a lot of negative to that. But I think you're rallying more people that have the like-minded approach to this. And how do you eat an elephant? Isn't that the phrase, right?
I say chocolate elephant.
Okay.
I try not to eat an elephant, but a chocolate one, you've got me.
Right. And it's one bite at a time. And I think just continuing, but I do know how overwhelming and frustrating it is, having just recently left the work that you're doing directly in the school. Just how do we continue to get people to join us on this journey? And it's just slowly adding more people that understand the mindset behind the why and the how.
all right.
So with that, it leads into our next poll that we do have ready. And this is a great way for your team to know how the progress is being made and, are your staff members involved in this process and how much is this being utilized? How much is your system being utilized? And the best way to know is through walkthroughs or walkarounds or walkabouts or whatever you call them. But when you just informally go around and check in and see, have you taught the expectations? Do you know what the expectations are? Are you using our acknowledgement system? So whatever informal measure that you're using, gonna try to launch that poll. But we know everyone's in different places right now. We asked this at the last meeting, so we're kind of curious if we've had any increase since the last meeting, but have you had a chance to get any walkthroughs, walkabouts, walkarounds done yet? And if not, we do encourage you to try to get one in January. I realize it's a chaotic month, but you're right around that semester break for a lot of people.
Yes, actually, many of us.
So this would be a good, point to see where are you and is there a specific expectation that needs retaught, because that's the one that the students aren't familiar with, or maybe your staff aren't familiar with. So thank you, those of you that are responding to our little poll here. If you don't see the poll, because sometimes Zoom does that to us, and we also know some people might be still on mobile devices that makes it difficult. Yeah, you can go ahead and throw it in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Leanne.
Yeah.
That walkabout, I'm feeling like I'm from down under today. About actually help you in so many different ways. It helps you celebrate. It also helps you prepare, and it also helps you, it's both proactive and responsive at the same time, because it allows you to see, is there an adult that needs some extra support? And then that way we can do that in such a non-threatening way, because we know that you are the cheerleaders, the superheroes, the catalysts of PBIS in your buildings. And we also know that that's difficult because many of you are not administrators, which we're glad. We don't want the lead to be an administrator because it has to come from us. It has to come from us as the teachers, because this is our community. This is our school. But this is one way that we can show our fellow colleagues that we are there to support them and to help them and to be there to build them up also when they need to be built up. So we're happy to see that we are getting some done. And I know Jessica encourages at least to start in January. I absolutely agree, because that's the only way we know that it's happening. What we inspect is what we will get.
Yeah. So it does look like we've made some progress since the last time we did this poll. I know it's not the exact same people, so we can't compare exactly. But we hope you find them meaningful, though. I hope that it's not just, oh, we do these walkthroughs because Marla told me to do these walkthroughs, so now I'm going to do these walkthroughs. But then you're able to then bring that information back to your teams and make some decisions based off of it, or possibly celebrate. You know, hey, we did a couple of walkthroughs in the past couple of months here, and every single student knew all of our expectations. That's worthy of celebration.
And you know, we're always talking about that adult implementation data. That's what this is. And please, it doesn't have to be complicated. Make it easy. You know my philosophy. If it's too hard, we're not going to do it. Make it simple and quick. Think about 4 things you want to see. Think about 4 things you want to hear. Whatever it is, pick that number and stick with it, but make it easy. But yeah. So we're going to stop sharing. We're going to probably ask this question again because we like this question. And just again, to make sure that you know that we're here to support you. Of course, I thought I was doing that, but apparently Matthew has control of the screen. I have no idea. So anyway,
I'm just going to keep staring at those results.
we're going to keep going. Our next section, and I know we are done in less than 15 minutes, but that's okay.
We will
this.
finish on time.
And that's the reason why we flipped our content. We wanted to get to the meat first, because we wanted to make sure that the updates, it's not that we're not thinking they're important, they are, but we also know that you're busy and we wanted to make sure you had that time to network with each other. But our updates are really quick and easy and probably going to be even faster than what I thought we were going to be. But the very first one is about that OLAC PBIS showcase. Remember, it did happen in December 6th to be exact. However, we do know that all of the recordings are still available on demand up until December 16th. And
January 16th, January 16th, December. December's over. That's January 16th.
And we thought it was really odd because they even put a time.
Yeah.
So it's December 16th at 10 a.m. But
all of the recordings will disappear.
Yeah. But if you were previously enrolled or registered, you have access to it,
and you can still register now. So if you, I'm so sorry, Marla.
Please do. No, you can still register and still get that content, because of one of those things is what will you do with it? How will you build the capacity of others? The next thing we want to share is those TFI Tuesdays. That thank you, Matthew. He has been so kind and patient, tolerant, all of those. We are now up to episode 6, and this was something that came out of a need for our region. We really were trying to find that consistent way to get consistent message out to all of our communities, all of our counties, and that's the birth of the TFI Tuesdays. And know that TFI Tuesdays is not going to stop with the tier 1. It's going to continue on through tier 2. And also there have been people that have been feeding us ideas that we are going to work through those ideas as well. These are all archived. You can reach these through YouTube. You can reach these once again through our website. And we encourage you to share them because, again, knowledge is only powerful when you share that knowledge. Matthew, any other thing that I missed? I know we're trying to be really quick on this, but you are the keeper of the TFI Tuesdays. The next episode.
Hold on, Michelle had her hand raised.
Oh, I can't see. Thank you.
I had a feeling.
I wondered, does anybody have a recommendation of the top 5 showcases to watch?
Oh, man.
Oh,
Such a great-
wow.
I love Polly Bath. I enjoyed.
I like Polly too, but I have a disclaimer too.
Oh, sure. That's true.
Polly does lump everybody into the same category, but Polly has great messages. Just remember, she lumps everybody in one category and you can't. One size does not fit all. I like Polly too.
Oh, man, there was another, I have those written downstairs that I had 2 other, and then the student panel.
The student panel is powerful.
And every time I hear it, I hear something different. That's great.
I
Did
don't-
anybody else have a chance to watch anything on the showcase that they thought was amazing?
I have my notebook here, but I'm flipping.
I should have been prepared for that. I'm so sorry.
Well, we should have known Michelle was going to come up with one of those questions. We will absolutely continue to pursue that one because.
Yeah, we can
it's hard
share
to-
that out in our follow-up email as well. I'm so glad you asked that.
Because it really is hard to pick the top ones because I think we all listen to different ones. I geared myself to those tier 2s and tier 3s. I even geared myself to, I like the urban conversation. Even though you may not be an urban school, if you go to the one with the urban conversation, it was pretty powerful as well because they talked about things that they overcame and how they were able to put this into place. So great question, Michelle.
Yes, thank you.
The other updates that we really do want to share with you are just really quick. And again, we always talk about the fact, and I do lump us all in with this one. We always talk about the fact that this isn't about recognition. It's about putting good things in place for your school. But we like the recognition piece because we want you to celebrate. And so on the next 3 slides, I think there are going to be some reminders of things that you want to consider for your tier 1 binder reminders. We know that again, that it has changed, that it's going to be reviewed outside of our region. So that's why we want to make sure you tell your story as clearly as possible. And the one artifact that is going to be the most powerful will be your meeting minutes. Making sure that those are clear will help you tell your story. We also want, Matthew, you want to just pop them all on because then I'll just randomly. We want to make sure that you remember that it is going to be electronic. It's not going to be the same as last year. It's going to be a folder that you are going to put all of your evidence in. I know some of our districts have gone to rolling agendas, which are beautiful because then you just lump in one agenda and then they're all there. We wanted to remind you that there is supposed to be an intent to apply in February. We know it's January. Notice we didn't put a date on there because whenever something comes from the state, I try not to say a particular date because then I don't want to be disappointed and I don't want to disappoint you. But we know in February, you're going to have to let us know that you're intending to apply.
And we will absolutely send that out to everyone that's in this meeting and in our network in general, as soon as we find out that information.
We also know the other critical piece that has to be in everybody's evidence is an action plan. And remember, we talk about not an overwhelming amount of goals, but 3, 4 random selected numbers.
I wouldn't say random. They need to be purposeful.
They're purposeful. The numbers are random.
Yes, yes.
Not the goals are written.
And we do have sample action plan templates in our Padlet as well, if that sounds scary all of a sudden.
The other most important thing that was not required last year, but is required this year is the SAS. So please contact whatever SST consultant you are working with, or if you're working with an ESC, which I know some of us are, we will need to get that SAS set up for you. I tend to recommend to my teams around January, February, because you've had a really nice solid couple months. You had then the time to reboot in January. So then that January, February is a good time to do the SAS. The other thing you'll want to schedule with your SST consultant or your ESC consultant is getting that TFI done. We know that the applications or all the evidence will be required in May, probably May 1st. Don't mark that date down for sure, but we're thinking May 1st. So you'll want to get that TFI scheduled and completed around March and April. But I know that you've heard all of us say that that TFI is your map. That should be something that should be front and center. I know I have a team that's actually on this meeting right now that uses the TFI regularly through their meetings. I know, Jessica, when you were in a building in a district, you use that constantly to inform your decisions and inform your practices.
And just a clarification, the SAS does not have to be done electronically. It's just way easier for the participants of the survey to complete it electronically. And if you do it through, and it's free to do it electronically, it's not a Google form, but all of that previous data will be housed so that as you do it year after year after year, you can see your progress from your school. So we do encourage you to do it electronically, and we can absolutely help with that. But it does not have to be done that way.
You get wonderfully beautiful charts and graphs, and really the hardest part that you have is sending out the link to all of your staff members. And when you think about your staff members, we're talking teachers, nurses, cafeteria, custodial, even your bus drivers can participate in this. The other thing that we want to share with you that's going to be rolled out softly, if there's a way to do that, that soft rollout is that they are going to be looking at outcome data. So that part you will not actually provide, but when all of your data is pulled together by the state in around August, September, they're going to be looking at your suspension rates, your expulsion rate, your attendance rate. They're going to look at the restraint and seclusion survey. So that's a piece that we need you to know about, so that way that it's not a surprise as we move forward. So again, those are some things that are tier 1 binder reminders. If you're thinking about the tier 2,
I am going to pause you because we have 2 minutes left, and I know that some people have to leave right at 10:30.
We do.
So we will finish these updates, but I am popping the evaluation form into the chat because I know some of you heard some of these updates at our previous office hours. And we will continue recording this. So if you need to hear the rest of them, we understand that. But I did want to pop in that feedback form. So if you do have to leave, we totally understand, as we just have 1 minute left. And I just took one of them. I'm so sorry, Marla. You can continue.
That's okay, but we'll record, and then that way you can listen to the parts that you need to hear. So the next slide should actually be looking at those universal pieces. These are ones that you're going to see regardless if you're tier 1 or tier 2. So you're going to want to see copies of your matrix and your posters by location. So snapshots of where your matrix is, snapshots of your posters by their location. They're going to want to see that walkthrough data, your informal walkthrough data, as well as the formal walkthrough data that's in the TFI. The application is going to be a combined application that is both application and rubric. And within that application, as always, will be your school profile. That's where you'll talk about your enrollment. You'll talk about how many suspensions you had the year before compared to the year current. They're going to want to see your acknowledgement system, that process that you use, what does it look like? How do you keep track of it? They're going to need to see that in a written form. They want to also see flowcharts of majors and minors, and not sure why that has a question mark at the end of that, because there is no question about that. They'll want to see both flowchart of majors and minors. And then once again, because it's so important and because it is new, no matter if you're applying for tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, AKA bronze, silver, or gold, they're going to look at outcome data from the state. And then for the next slide, we talk about those binder reminders that are specific to tier 2.
Which is your silver binder.
Which is silver. And so when you think about those ones, always think about everything that we've already mentioned, your practices, your policies, because remember, they want to see, this is about those systems. Remember, systems, your practices, your data improves your outcomes. So tier 2, they're going to really be looking for that written policy of how do you determine or screen that somebody needs a tier 2 support. What is your menu of interventions that match student need? And that doesn't mean you have to have a menu of 20, 30 different things, but you do have to have a menu of different interventions you're going to try, because we mentioned that earlier, one size does not fit all. Probably one of the most important things they're going to look for are your decision rules. How do you know? How does your team determine a scholar needs a tier 2 support? Or how does your team determine your scholar is exiting from a tier 2 or tier 3 support? And then fourthly, that tracking document. How are we monitoring our students that are receiving the tier 2, tier 3 supports? How do we know when did they start receiving a support? When did we meet to make sure that support is working? And this doesn't have to be elaborate. And we do have some ideas for that tracking document as well. And then one of the tools that we have been working on to support you, which is something we are calling our launch pads. And we actually have them for tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. The one that's here is the tier 1. Tier 2 is sort of still being massaged and updated. But our goal with this launch pad, our PBIS resource launch pad, was to give you some ideas, because sometimes we need some energizing ways of looking at things. And then the third column is actually questions that you could use with your team to generate more conversation, or maybe even generate more ideas. As you use that launch pad, what we would love to hear back from you is it working? Did we ask the right questions, or are there other questions or other supports that you might need? And we do promise you that tier 2 will be out before the end of the month.
Yes.
So I know that we are 3 minutes over. And I know that your time is very important. So we do have another poll, but we're not going to do it. But we do have it out there because we want you to think about that, the content we talked about last time about creating calm and helping students become more regulated, and how to help students de-escalate. So thinking about those items, those tools, those resources that we provided you last time, because remember, I know that I need to use something right away or try something right away in order for me to get it into my short-term memory and then transfer it into my long-term memory, because remember, all of PBIS is about creating new habits. So those resources you're going to find on slide 30 of your Google slide deck. And Jessica, I can't thank you enough for putting that post-event survey in the chat box. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Matthew, thank you for being on and guiding us. But if there's anybody that has any additional questions, concerns, we're going to hang out here for a little while. So feel free to actually hang out with us, and we'll be happy to chat with you. I can't thank you enough for your time, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you find many reasons to smile today. And as always, be safe, be positive, and be kind.
And I know some of you aren't rushed off. You're welcome to revisit any of your earlier intentions at this time. Please, while it's still fresh in your mind, take those next steps on that note-taking page and jot down what you're going to do with this information moving forward. So if you are not rushed and on your way on out, we do encourage you to revisit those intentions and write down some action steps for yourself and for your team of what you're going to do moving forward with this information. Thank you so much for being here today. We greatly appreciate the cameras on and the engagement. It would be very lonely without your wonderful faces and voices.